Hey there, it's Tony with Mile High Gardener. There's a lot of information out there about tomato varieties, and I'm going to tell you a few things that I think are important. In this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between determinate and indeterminate varieties. I'm going to talk about the nutritional value of tomatoes and what heirloom seeds are and why they're important when it comes to tomatoes. I'm also going to tell you about my favorite determinate and indeterminate varieties of tomatoes to plant in my garden. Determinate versus indeterminate. So determinate tomatoes, think of them as something that produces a finite amount of fruit. All of the fruit becomes ripe at once, and the tomatoes don't live a terribly long time. Usually, you don't have to stake these determinate tomatoes down because their lifespan is so low, and they don't get as viney as the other variety of tomatoes. Indeterminate varieties, on the other hand, require a little bit more work. They produce long vines, and they produce tomatoes throughout the growing season, so you kind of have to stake them down and deal with the vininess of tomatoes. They're a very popular variety. People like to have them all garden season long, but again, they are a little bit more work than the determinate varieties. Now let's talk about nutrition. We all know that tomatoes are very nutritious. They're in all kinds of different dishes around the world. There are a few qualities about tomatoes that make them particularly nutritious. One of them is lycopene. This is more actually for the plant's health than anything. Lycopene is what gives tomatoes its very red color, and it protects it from the sun. And it's the reason why plants can be planted in the full sun, because they have that UV protection from the lycopene. Tomato plants also contain potassium, which helps with general cell function. They contain vitamin B, which helps convert food essentially into energy, otherwise known as metabolism, and they contain vitamin E, which is an antioxidant. Here are a few popular indeterminate varieties. Remember, indeterminate varieties are the varieties that will produce all season long. However, you have to prune them, you have to stake them down, and you have to tie them up to the stake and just keep up with general maintenance. One of my favorite varieties is the Cherokee purple tomato. These are from Tennessee and are actually said to be from the Native Americans, the Cherokee tribe in Tennessee. These are really cool, and most of the companies sell them. I have 2 or 3 different varieties, or 2 or 3 different companies that I've bought these Cherokee tomatoes from. These are San Marzano tomatoes. These are an Italian variety, and they say that all paste tomatoes can be traced back to the San Marzano tomato. So the origins of all or most paste tomatoes can be tracked back to this San Marzano tomato. So I think that's really cool. Again, it's a really great indeterminate. And lastly here, I have the Mortgage Lifter tomato. These produce huge fruits. They can get up to 2.5 pounds or higher. They'll produce all season long as they are well taken care of. It does take 80 to 85 days to harvest, which isn't terrible, especially if you live in the South and have a longer growing season. Now, some of my favorite determinate tomatoes. Remember, determinate tomatoes are the tomatoes that are going to produce a finite amount of fruit. All of the fruit is going to become ripe at one time, and after that fruit is picked, it is no longer going to produce, and it will slowly die back. They are less work because you don't really have to stake them. You can, but you definitely don't have to. Now, this Mountain Princess tomato is a determinate, and I live in the mountains in western Colorado, so we will see if Mountain Princess actually lives up to its name or not. The Homestead tomato. I wish I had a better picture for you, but the seed packet did not come with pictures. These are a really good tomato. They make pretty decently sized tomatoes, but again, they all come ripe at once. They are great for canning. That's what I like to do when I can. I like determinates for that purpose because they're all ready at once, whereas the indeterminates, if I want to can them, it's a multi-week canning process, which can be kind of annoying. I have a couple Roma tomato varieties here, so take a look at this one. This is the striped Roma tomato, and then this tomato, it's just the regular Roma tomato. Again, these are determinate. These are used a lot of times in pasta sauces and things like that. And they make a really good slicing tomato. And then finally, another one of my favorite determinate tomatoes is this Rutgers heirloom tomato. This is a pretty good description of what it looks like. And you might notice these from the grocery store because these are popularly grown and sold in big stores. Finally, let's talk about heirloom tomatoes. Heirloom tomatoes are very fascinating for me. First of all, what are they? Well, heirloom tomatoes are open pollinated. They're true to type, which just means if you plant an heirloom tomato, let's just say a San Marzano, when it grows, it's going to make San Marzano tomatoes. And when you collect the seeds from those San Marzano tomatoes, they are going to grow, and you plant them, they're going to grow into more San Marzano tomatoes. That is one of the benefits of heirloom seeds as opposed to, let's say, hybrid or GMO seeds. Hybrid seeds, they are a cross between two different varieties of tomatoes. When you, like, let's just say you go to the grocery store, you eat a tomato, cut it up, eat it, and you want to plant some of the seeds, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's a very, very good chance that when that tomato grows up, it's not going to be the same tomato that you bought at the grocery store, because many commercial tomato growers use hybrid varieties. And if you want to just make sure that you get the same tomato year after year after year, you want to get yourself some heirloom tomato seeds. There's pros and cons for sure. I would say the biggest con is that heirloom tomatoes tend to be less disease resistant than their hybrids. Hybrids can be bred for all types of things, to resist certain types of diseases, to resist really humid conditions, to resist dry conditions, certain pests, the list goes on and on. And with that, they're less disease resistant, the heirloom varieties are, than the hybrids. You do kind of run the risk of some tomato varieties not performing as well as you would like them to in your location as maybe a hybrid would. But then again, you just have to try out which heirloom varieties work the best in your area. That's the key to this all. I live in Western Colorado. I can't grow all these heirlooms here. It just won't work. Some have been bred in certain areas. Others have been bred in other areas. To expect all of the varieties to work in my area, it just doesn't make too much sense. And I personally seed save, and a lot of people stress out about saving their seeds, because if you plant 10 different varieties of tomatoes in the garden, let's say, and you want to save their seeds, let's say you have a mortgage lifter tomato and a Cherokee purple and a San Marzano, and you have them all planted next to each other, and you really want to save the seeds. You don't want a hybrid. You don't want a Cherokee San Marzano cross. A lot of people don't save the seeds because they don't want the cross. They just want the original tomatoes that they planted. Well, there's a really easy fix to this. There are these things called blossom bags that you can buy on Amazon or wherever you buy your gardening stuff. And all you have to do is put a blossom bag onto the plant before it starts flowering. And you just have to self-pollinate that certain tomato variety that you want. But the beauty of the blossom bag is it doesn't let any insects or birds or anything like that in to pollinate the flowers naturally. So you can artificially pollinate it and guarantee that you are getting the variety of tomato that you wanted. And that's the method that I use. Now, is there anything wrong with collecting seeds from a hybrid tomato? No, not really. It's just a surprise. You don't know what you're going to get. If you just want some tomatoes and you don't really care about the variety that you get, go ahead and plant. You don't even need to put a blossom bag on. Then collect the seeds, plant them, something will grow. It'll be a tomato. You just don't exactly know what kind of tomato it's going to grow as, and it might not be disease resistant for your area, and it might not do super well in your area, but it's all part of the game. Tomatoes are so cheap, and so are their seeds. There's nothing really lost with experimenting a little bit. And if you're gonna save the seeds, make sure to store them in a cool, dry area. Seeds don't really expire per se. Their germination tends to decline the older they get. But I've been sprouting seeds that are well over 10 years old, and they do just fine. They probably lost a little bit of germination, but I have a bunch of them. I just plant several seeds and hope for the best, and I think a lot of us tend to do that. In conclusion, there's a lot of information out there about tomatoes, and what I would advise you to do is just get out there and experiment, try some different varieties, try some hybrids, go to the store, buy a tomato, cut it open, scoop out the seeds, save them, plant them, see what happens. Let me know in the comments if you've tried this before, if you grow only heirloom, if you grow hybrid tomatoes, or if you've even gone to the store and collected your own. How did it work? Were you successful? Were you unsuccessful? Why were you successful? Why were you maybe unsuccessful? Share your knowledge with others. If you found this video informational or entertaining, please give me a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks, guys.